He has been surveying and monitoring coral reefs for over 30 years and has led research teams to to many previously unstudied reefs from all around the country, including Kalayaan, or the Spratly Islands, where he discovered coral species Leptoceris kalayaanensis, wow, which was then new to science. In the Pacific Ocean coast from Luzon to Mindanao, okay, he completed a Department of Science and Technology Picard funded project that undertook a nationwide reassessment of the status of coral reefs. So let's all give a hand again for Dr. Wilfredo Al Licanan.
Hey, good morning. Okay, it's Licuanan. Uh, Sige, I'll talk about corals. And I'm targeting this talk to everyone. I'm not just talking to the people who are pitching about coral conservation. Uh, I'm trying to get to all of you. Okay. So what I'll do in this presentation, and I have 20 minutes, is I'll start by dispelling some misconceptions about coral reefs, and then I'll talk to you as somebody who has turned out to be developing tools um, for most of my career. Okay, so next slide. Does it work? Okay, so these are pictures of corals. This is what they look like because too often a lot of people are only familiar with what they look like when they're dead, that white skeleton. This is what they look like when they're alive. They're very colorful. Uh, there's a huge variety of them, and we have the most number of species in the world, over 500. To put that in context, the Great Barrier Reef, the largest reef system in the world, only has about 400 species. The whole of the Caribbean has only about 50. Hawaii has about 18. And the Philippines has an estimated 600 species. Okay. You should know that they are animals. Okay. They are not plants. They are not rocks. They are animals, but they have plants living inside their bodies, microscopic plants, and these plants need sunlight. That's why corals need sunlight as well. And these microscopic plants provide up to 80% of the nutrition that the animal needs. So for the most part, they just need to sit there, soak up the sun, the plants inside their bodies do the work, and they just need to provide those plants protein, and that's why they have to feed on plankton. And one more thing, they sit on their skeleton. Okay, the skeleton is beneath them, not really inside them. Okay, this is a sex video if you're a coral, okay, because this is a video of corals releasing their egg and sperm in about waist deep of water at 9 p.m. near a cemetery where our vehicles are parked. And I put this title because there's a lot of interest in people gardening corals, essentially propagating them by fragmenting them, when the effort should be focused on getting them to reproduce, because if you are able to raise their larvae, you will produce millions of juveniles as opposed to fragments where at best you'll produce thousands. Okay. So um, there's some misunderstanding about what we need to fix our reefs and coral gardening. According to our work, we show there na it's not really that good an idea. Okay, this coral here is about 4 meters across. Okay, so this is about 2.5. Okay, uh, and it grows really slowly. And if you think about it, it's 4 meters across. It grows 1 centimeter a year. It's really old. Okay. In fact, uh, it appears not to age. They are like elves of the sea. They don't have pointy ears, but they can live forever if nothing kills them. Okay, this kind at least. Other corals are smaller, they grow faster, they live shorter lives. Okay, so point in this slide is some corals are like grass and some corals are like trees. Okay, and you need both, but some are more important than others for certain things. But we need all of them. Okay, think about it: 505 species, and you need to understand each one of them if you want to take care of all of them. Okay, these are pictures taken from fossil assemblages in a town called Curimao in Ilocos. There's my foot for scale, and you see all these branches fossilized na of coral accumulating, forming thick layers. And if you look into the rock, you'll see them embedded in the rock. Natural formations, really, really old formations. How old? This is a photo of the reef. It's now outside the water, about 3 meters above water. It's about 10,000 years old. It's dead now because it's outside the water. Why is it outside the water? Because 10,000 years ago, there was global warming. So the sea levels were higher. The sea level was about here. And that reef grew up to sea level. Okay, and then when the water levels dropped, this reef died and the corals got fossilized. Okay, so you can use uranium thorium dating to determine how old the corals are here, here, and so on. The oldest part is about 10,000 years old. The youngest part is about 6,000 years old. And if you plot those dates and the height, you can compute the growth rate. Okay. Kanina, I showed you the growth rate of corals. What I'm showing you here is growth rate of the reef. Okay. And what is the reef? The reef is the accumulation of corals over thousands of years, forming what is now a geological structure built by organisms. Okay. That's a coral reef. It's a geological structure made by organisms. Think about those numbers. A typical reef that started when I was born would be this high now. Ganun kabagal. Ganun kabagal, but remember, reefs are also big. How big? You can see it in this photo taken by the team of Dr. Soriano, the brains behind Antipara. And this is a selfie of sorts. About 2 weeks ago, Dr. Soriano and I were talking, and we realized na we've been working together for 19 years na, a physicist trying to help coral reef ecologists study our reefs. This photo is a selfie. The photographer is the banca. There's a line attached to a kite. The kite is carrying a GoPro, and a picture is taken. And I asked for the picture because if you look closely, you will see three coral reefs on top of each other. There's the first layer. It formed, and then the northern end of Mindoro sank a few meters. And so the coral reef was forced to grow again, a second layer. And then the island sank again. And so a third layer formed. Okay. Over thousands of years. And so if you dive there, in the town of Paluan, you will see this profile na parang hagdanan, giant steps. Okay. Why? Because the coral reef was trying to stay with the sunlight. Okay. And why do I show you this? Because coral reefs are huge structures. They are built by organisms. The organisms are small. The organisms grow slowly, but they build huge structures. Like in Bohol, one reef is 17 kilometers long, enough to get you outside Manila. These things are big, and we have an estimated 25,000 square kilometers of reef. Okay, so this part about demystifying things. First point, if you see coral in an area, you're not necessarily looking at a coral reef. Okay, it could be that you have a lot of coral growing on rock, not on skeleton of earlier generations of corals. Okay. Second point, a reef takes thousands of years to form. Okay. And if you want to say now, we're here to save the reef, good. Okay. Saving the reef means protecting the organisms that built the reef. Ganyan. Pero if you're here to say, oh, I'm going to build a reef, okay, good luck. I hope you live a few thousand years or more than that, because it's a really slow process. Okay. These structures are very valuable. I hope you all know that. Pero here's a piece of information you should remember, especially this summer. A square meter of healthy reef produces 1 to 5 kilograms of white sand per year. Okay, 1 to 5 kilograms of white sand. But what is white sand anyway? It's just ground up coral skeleton. Okay, and if you have a healthy reef, there's lots of coral producing skeleton, and eventually that skeleton will erode, and you get white sand. Okay, so you want to support tourism, you want to protect our islands, you let the reef grow. It's very important in terms of organisms that yield substances that produce medicine. For example, this snail eats fish. Snail that eats fish, paano niya nahuhuli yun? Okay. Because of simple proteins that they use to immobilize the fish. And those proteins were synthesized into painkillers by Filipino scientists. Reefs support 25% of our fisheries production. Reefs support a lot of other organisms. And if that's not important to you, perhaps this is important. A fairly new study, 2018, total economic value of reefs in terms of ecosystem services, $4 billion a year. Okay, so 2014, we got a grant from DOST, Picard, to do a reassessment of reefs around the Philippines. Okay, The first nationwide assessment was 40 years ago. Okay. The latest was completed in 2017. We visited over 400 reefs. We did surveys in 206. We focused on the ones nearest the shore, the ones that support the seagrass and the mangroves, which, by the way, the seagrass and the mangroves help keep the reef healthy as well, but that's another lecture. We use methods that are, by standards of the methods that they are replacing, quite advanced. The methods are very image-based. Right now, I have two teams in the field, one in Pangasinan, one in Batangas. And typically our work, after a week, we come home with something like 80 gigabytes of images, from which we collect our data from, and creates huge storage problems. The network storage is taking over my desk. Uh, we count things, identify things from coral. There's a project in Cebu related to this. But this problem we've been dealing with a long time, yun nga, 19 years, should be automated, but it's still done by people. Anyway, what we found is 40 years ago, they classified 5% of our reefs as excellent, meaning more than 3/4 of the surface is covered by coral. And during our assessment, we did not find any of those excellent category reefs. Okay. So, a lot of people are still using the old numbers. 5% of the reefs are in excellent condition. That was 40 years ago. Okay. The latest, 0. And we found, and the paper just came out last month, we lost 1/3 of our coral in the Philippines in the last 10 years. Okay. Buhay na kayo, okay, when we lost 1/3 of our coral. Okay. So, what does that mean? We are all to blame. Okay. So, I started with this really nice shot of Tubataha taken over 10 years ago. If you look at many reefs, they look like this. The waters are not clear. There's hardly any fish. The corals are falling apart. If you find coral, and there's actually overgrowth, algal overgrowth of the coral, it's shifting to slime. It's not a pretty sight, but it's a very common sight. Okay. This picture was taken in 2010. Why 2010? 2010, our waters heated up. Okay. And in this one spot, you can do a 360-degree turn, and every coral, as far as the eye can see, they were all dead. They were all dead. It was heartbreaking. If you're familiar with the papal encyclical on the environment, Laudato Si, there is this quote which came from the Catholic Bishops' Conference of the Philippines. It came from the Philippines. And what did the Pope quote? Who turned the wonder world of the seas into underwater cemeteries bereft of color and life. Who? Us. Okay. Madaling i-blame ang climate change, but we've been showing since about 2009 that human impact overwhelms the impact of climate change. Okay, that was 2010. This picture was taken last month. It's happening again. This morning I got an email, alert level 2. Northern Philippines. Last week, alert level 2, Central Philippines. What's happening right now, the water is about 3 degrees higher than normal. And that's already lethal to corals. So right now, our study, which ended in 2017, is probably going to be obsolete by the end of the year. Because we're losing coral right now. It's happening again. And this is where we start talking about what could you be doing here now. Okay. The point is, our work is the latest of a series of assessments. And what do assessments tell you? Assessments tell you that, okay, I'll do that. Assessments tell you what we have lost. Okay. What should we be doing? We should be monitoring. Okay. Just quickly, a study already identified, okay, we're going to lose these reefs. Wala na tayong magagawa because we cannot act fast enough. Which ones are going to survive? Okay. And according to this analysis, 3 of those systems are in the Philippines. 9% of the ability to regenerate the reefs of the world lies within our waters. And we have to think about, we're responsible for 9% of what's going to be left. Ano ang gagawin natin? Anong pwede niyong gawin? Ang pwede niyong gawin is mag-monitor. Okay. And monitoring needs to be done by scientists, needs to be done by people who live in the coastal areas. Why? Okay, I learned this last week. The Philippines has more islands than employees of the Bureau of Fisheries. That's one. Number 2, only 2% of our coastal towns and cities have a marine scientist of some kind. 2%. The expertise is not available. There's not enough scientists. We have to make scientists of people. Okay. By the way, this monopod, a patent for this was applied for about 3 weeks ago by DLSU with me as the inventor, not because I want to make money out of this, because what we want to do next is talk about a social enterprise involving communities. Hindi ko pa nakikita yung term na yon dun sa mga pitch. Social enterprise. Why do I have to talk about that? And sorry na I'm going over time, but this is important. Okay. We do a lot of things now that involve technology. For example, this image is a subset of a 9 gigabyte file that is a mosaic of a 10 by 10 plot of reef na we made a 3D image of because we want to rectify it in such a way that we can make measurements from them. Okay, measurements that would otherwise take a lot of time. Ganyan. So, there is a lot of tech going into what we're doing. Okay, but the corals are dying right now. This is still in the development stage. Ganyan. So, my advice, last few slides, this will go very quickly. Turns out na as I was making this presentation, I realized na I've been doing what you're trying to do since 2006. Ganyan. 2006, we published a paper about an app that we put together to help the mayors figure out how many fishers can their municipal waters support. How large should their sanctuary be? Ganyan. We won an award for that. 2015, we published a paper related to CBAT. It was actually developed together with that, with the same people. And what we try to do here is equip the coastal communities with tools that will allow them to figure out how vulnerable they are to climate change. It became an Android app through a grant, which we called Savant.
Uh, and I don't know if it's still there. Ganyan. Kasi, I realized early enough na my talent is in the development of the tools, not in the marketing, not in the rollout. It was in the development. Okay. I figured out what I should do what I do best, and others are better in doing the other things, and I let them do that. Okay. But what did I learn from all these? In all this work? First, and this is, I'm talking to all of you. One, good intentions are not enough. Okay. I wrote this article for the centennial of the university, De La Salle University. Why? Because a colleague reminded me na all over the country, and you probably were involved in this, tanim ng mangrove, mali yung tinatanim sa maling lugar, at pinapalitan ng mangrove yung seagrass bed. Okay. Why? Because people wanted to help, but didn't know they were actually doing more harm than good. So, right now, think about it. Is your project going to do more harm than good? Okay. You'll be surprised. The answer is yes. Okay. Kasi for example, I just erased the name here. This picture was sent to me a few days ago. There's a name of a person there. This person is trying to help the reef by sticking a nail, putting some epoxy, and sticking a coral to rescue it, and then adding a plastic tag dun sa reef, ganyan, with the person's name. Is this person helping? No. In fact, this person should be in jail because what he's doing is illegal, because in the fisheries code, the gathering of the coral is already illegal, and you need a permit, and you have to be a scientist to get this permit. Okay. So, good intentions are not enough, and sometimes your good intentions can get you in jail. Okay. This is our tool, and USAID actually spent money spreading this technology to all the towns in the country, and it was good. It allowed the people to figure out, using simple data, how many fishers can the coastal water support. And we used this on lots of data, extracted a lot of information, provided advice to the government offices concerned. Did it change anything? I don't know. I don't think so. Pero after all that, we realized that the value of our work is not the app. Is after you apply the app in all the situations, we came up with a simple rule that doesn't need a computer to apply to any place. What's that simple rule? If you have 3 fishers per square kilometer of waters, and they're catching around 3 kilograms a day, your sanctuary has to be 30% of the municipal waters. And if your fishers are too many, 7 fishers per square kilometer, and they're extracting something like 7 kilograms per day, you have to protect 70% of the waters. Okay. So you don't need the app. Now we invented, now we won an award for, and it was distributed by international organizations. No, you just need to remember the rule of thumb: 3, 330, 7, 770. Okay. And that's all you need. That's what you teach people out there. Not sell them an app. Provide them information that they need to make the right decisions. Okay. So whatever it is you come up with, think about it. If one app can change the world, which is what we thought in 2006, then the problem should not exist anymore. Okay. But the problems are far, far bigger. And whatever it is that you are doing, what you have to show as early as after this talk is you're making this part of an existing effort to change things. And changing things means involving people in an information generation process, and that information is used to change things and change lifestyles. Because the problems, the environmental problems, do not have technical solutions. It requires behavior change. But if your inventions can stimulate that behavior change, then that what you have is really truly valuable. Okay. Good luck with your project, and sorry I took up too much time.